Today we're reviewing the new Viltrox 15mm f1.7 lens, which is a fast, wide autofocus zoom, and best of all, at a budget price. I've used the Viltrox 15mm f1.7 lens on the Fuji X-T5 for street photography, and I used it at a portrait shoot for my friend's band, as well as to capture a bunch of images of them in the recording studio. Now, this review is going to have a lot of images, so stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe while you're here. Go ahead and gently press that like button as well, as there's no need to smash it. Now, it seems like almost every 2 weeks, Viltrox is releasing a new lens, and they're definitely working hard to make a bunch of prime lenses in basically every focal length and price range. Now, I visited their booth at the B&H Build Expo in June, and I was really shocked by how many film and cine lenses they currently have in their lineup, and they show no signs of slowing down. This 15mm f1.7 lens is part of their Air series, so it's small and light, that has a USB-C port for firmware updates, and a plastic body that still feels well made. The lens does not have an aperture ring, so for us Fuji flakes out there, we will have to make do adjusting the aperture via our dreaded command dials. The lens weighs 214 grams, or for my fellow Americans, 0.471789 pounds. And on the X-T5, you barely notice it's there. Now, since I'm an anti-UV filter guy, I keep the lens hood on my lenses almost all the time. And even with the hood on, it's still pretty compact. When Viltrox sent me this lens to review, and yes, of course, they'll see this review the same time you do, the first thought I had was, what the heck am I going to do with a 15mm or 22.5 full frame equivalent millimeter lens? After all, I'm a portrait photographer. Hey everyone, I'm interrupting my own video to tell you all about the Portrait Community, which is an online portrait coaching group that I run for portrait photographers, and we talk all about portrait photography and becoming better at our craft. We talk about business, we talk about life, we meet weekly online, and you get to work hands-on with me. So if you're interested, check it out in the description below. There is a link there where you can sign up for 14 days and just check it out for free, see what it's all about, and I hope to see you there. Now back to the video. So I decided to give it a try for street photography with a focus on capturing some interesting and abstract angles of buildings. And I was really happy with some of the images that I captured. Usually when I do street photography, I like a 35mm or even sometimes a 50mm. So this was definitely out of my wheelhouse when it comes to the focal length, but it was a good reminder that it's good to get out of your comfort zone, especially when you're dealing with focal lengths. Outside of doing the architecture style photos, I did something I never do. I stopped down the lens. I know. I felt dirty at first, but then the shame eventually wore off. Now, I did it because I wanted to get some cool shots of people walking around the city near Hudson Yards, which is where I was shooting. And I wanted to give myself a better chance at getting faces in focus, since I was basically holding the camera at waist level and spraying and praying like this. Again, I captured some great shots that I wouldn't have been able to make with 35 or 50mm, and the wide angle for street photography really did work well. The AF, which I'll mention here, is also fast and quiet, and outside of having the sun directly behind the subject, it worked almost flawlessly. For these, I did use a wide focus area, single AF, and I had face detect enabled, and the camera just figured it out. I also did some slow shutter photos as well, where I blurred out the people and bicycles as they whizzed by. It's derivative, I know, but it was still a lot of fun. Now, besides shooting a ton of street photos around New York, I took the Viltrox and the Fuji X-T5 with me to document my friend's band as they recorded at a studio in Queens. The fast 1.7 aperture definitely came in handy inside the studio, even though there was a lot of available light coming through the windows. I also brought with me a Godox V1 flash and an Angler 20-inch fast box, which I used for a few images inside, but most of the inside images were natural light. I was able to get them all in frame because of how wide the lens is, and the space here was pretty cramped, although it might look a little bit larger in the photos. It was still not that big. But the real fun began when we went up on the roof of the building, because we had the perfect day to do some rooftop portraits. Lots of beautiful clouds, lots of sun. Plus we went out there around 2:30, 3 p.m. or so. And in this case, I brought the Godox flash out with me because my idea was to expose for the background and then pop some light onto my subjects to illuminate their faces. And another thing I did was I shot in RAW as I always do, but I had the camera set to Acros plus R Film Sim, and then I edited the photos in Capture One to really bring out the drama. And since I exposed for the background, I was able to preserve all the detail in both the subject and the background and to get this really cool sort of HDR look. Now, if you want to know more about my editing process, check out the black and white pop video that I made about a week ago, which is linked in the description below. All right, let's talk about micro contrast, and I want to zoom in 400% on the images now. Yeah, I'm kidding, because that's dumb. All right, but what I will say in all seriousness about the image quality from this 15mm is that it is very good. It's not quite as crisp and detailed as, say, my Fuji 23mm f1.4 lens, but it's still sharp and punchy nonetheless. Also, I shot into the direct sun because one of you asked me in the comments on a previous Viltrox lens review about flare, and I didn't notice any crazy artifacts or anything like that, so that was a plus too. Overall, I found the image quality to be excellent though, and there is a lot of vignetting, which is expected with a wide-angle lens like this. I shot a lot of my street photos in auto ISO too, so some of them were shot at ISO 3200, and they look very good even at the higher ISO using the dreaded 40 megapixel sensor that Fujifilm bemoan when it comes to low light performance. For a lens that costs $239 US, it's really an excellent value, especially if you've been jonesing for a wide angle lens for your Fuji camera and you don't want to shell out $600, $800, or $1,000. Now, the only time the AF struggled, as I mentioned, is when I was shooting into a backlit situation. Outside of that, it did work very well. I didn't find it to be a hindrance to me in any way, shape, or form. So is this lens worth it? Well, I think if you're looking for a fast, wide-angle lens that's not going to break the bank, but that will give you fast autofocus, great images, and a really fun user experience, this is definitely going to be a winner for you. One thing I'm going to mention is that I didn't shoot much video with this lens, so I have no idea how it will perform on a Fuji camera when filming video, so just keep that in mind as well. The biggest con for me on the Viltrox 15mm is that it doesn't have an aperture ring, which would have been really preferred. But I would imagine that Viltrox didn't include an aperture ring for a number of reasons: weight, size, price. And even though I do prefer having a physical aperture ring, it's not a deal breaker for me. It's just something you get used to pretty quickly, whether you need to use a command dial or a ring. Well, that's all I have for you on this new Viltrox 15mm Air lens. If this review has helped you to decide to purchase one, go ahead and use one of my links in the description below, and thank you in advance. Here's wishing you all an amazing day. Go out and take some great pictures, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.